So what the hell is Throne and Liberty? This is going to be a short, snappy TLDR breakdown to help you decide, is this MMO your kind of thing?
It's absolutely probably not.
We'll cover the main details, what kind of content does this game have, the game systems, social features, and all the unique and interesting gimmicks. So where on earth did this game come from? Well, it's been in the oven since 2011. Yeah, it's probably older than half the TikTok population by now. And it was initially supposed to be a spiritual sequel to Lineage 2. But like most of us during our teenage years,
I thought Lineage was a mobile game.
Identity crisis, and now it's evolved into a hybrid of New World and World of Warcraft with maybe a sprinkle of the Ashes of Creation's influence. This is an MMO that focuses both on good PvE and PvP content, but you're probably
it was a big MMO for a while. Okay.
To avoid PvP content, to be honest. You see, this is an MMO that is designed for people who actually like MMOs.
Oh, this is where you can pretty much do dungeons, but with like the NPCs as your party members.
There is solo content, but it isn't heavily focused on solo content, and you will probably be missing out on most of the fun elements of this game if you're playing the game solo. This is a high fantasy MMO focused on guilds, dynamic world events, massive PvP battles, huge world bosses, elite areas also known as world dungeons, and there are actually 17 instanced dungeons and raids with more on the way. Even the weather will affect your gameplay in this game. For instance, strong winds might make your gliding mount even faster, or maybe slower. So don't expect this to be a MMO where you sit in your capital city every week just raid logging. There's even server events where the whole server has to come together to complete the objective of a certain event. But then there's also global events where every server has to go and do something.
That's pretty looking. I like that floor.
Turn into. By the way, guys, in the future, obviously, we'll be.
Oh, this is the game where you turn into a fucking wolf randomly.
So be sure to subscribe so you don't
I think I've
miss
seen
that
this
video. I'll also be live streaming on my channel for the launch, and we're going to be covering loads more MMO content in the future. So what the hell do you actually do in this game? Well, let's start with the leveling experience. So you've got these two codexes, the Adventure Codex and the Exploration Codex. The Adventure Codex gives you a story-focused questline with voice acting and actual actors to immerse yourself into the world. And while there's some grinding, typical of MMOs, most of this experience should feel like you're following a questline in something like a single-player RPG like Skyrim, minus the arrow to the knee. Yep, that one up. But anyway, you've also got the Exploration Codex on the other hand, which gives you objectives for different areas, which will also grant extra XP when you complete them. And then you've got loads of dynamic world events popping off very regularly, apparently every hour or so from the footage that I've seen. There's always something happening in the open world. You're not just hopping from quest hub to quest hub, killing boars, picking up berries from the ground. It's a very diverse leveling experience. There's also a bunch of secrets that require a little parkour, plus there's always going to be random rare world bosses to hunt down in the world too. If you've played anything like Guild Wars 2, at the end of the day it's the same developers as Guild Wars 2, expect stuff like that. At endgame, you've got dungeons, raids, and even more world events. And if you're into PvP, there's also castle siege battles twice a week, where guilds basically fight for control of a huge castle. And the winning guild obviously gets loads of sweet rewards, which the other guild can.
Is there any low-scale PvP?
Steal. Siege battles aren't just kind of like your run-of-the-mill, run-up and hit things. You actually need to break down castle walls with these golems. And there's even golems that kind of serve as a glorified Uber, letting players ride a platform to leap over the walls. And if the winds are strong enough in the game, you can actually glide over the walls yourself, assuming you launch from a high enough cliff nearby. There are huge monster invasion events, hybrid PvE and PvP events, seasonal shenanigans, and contracts, which are basically like the world quests in World of Warcraft. The point is, you're not just going to grind gear and then sit in town waiting for raids to reset in this game. You're going to be out in the world doing things, proper MMO stuff. There's also going to be a battlegrounds and arena to sharpen your PvP skills so you don't absolutely suck in those big castle battles. The combat itself is very similar to World of Warcraft's tab targeting style. Originally, combat was criticised for being very clunky in the game, likely because they are preparing for a future mobile version of this game. But apparently, according to a recent news post, they have extensively worked to remedy this by improving the movement and the camera in the game. The most important game system has to be the class system, because there is none. Just like New World, you pick a weapon, level it up, and choose a loadout of 2 weapons, and that's it. It's a buffet for build enthusiasts. Equipment upgrading is hands down one of the best systems I've ever seen. You don't have to say goodbye to that low-level sword that you upgraded at level 5. Instead, you can transfer the XP you invested into this weapon into a new weapon at level 20. So there's no wasted time, no regrets, just progress. And there is going to be crafting in the game.
Glazing
also,
this game.
You can craft your own gear.
I think he wants to try and make content out of it.
And by the way,
so
mounts,
he's going to be biased.
kind of
It looks shit to me.
Typical mounts work in MMOs, but you actually
it looks really pretty.
Mount. The pets in the game are going to provide little bonuses like.
But I'm not interested in most of the stuff he said.
Certain resource.
I don't give a fuck about the large-scale PvP. I think large-scale PvP is great for, you know, one time, and then from then on, it's just good for content creators. I think it's boring as dirt. Whoa, epic big battle. But when you actually play in those battles, you learn that it's just an AoE spam fest, and it's not actually that fun. Maybe things can change, like with the castles, and maybe, but from my experience, it's never really been good. And the other problem, I don't like the weapon system. Like, I don't like how he's saying it's a good thing and that's it. That's all you got to do. And it's a buffet of so many different builds. No, it's not a buffet. You're going to have the best builds, and you're going to have the builds that no one wastes their time doing. That's how MMOs are played now, and you'll never change that. Unless you get some perfectly balanced game that fucking breaks everything in the world and is great. What? No way. Sure, you need to have a healer, but like, let's say you have 4 healing weapons. In most cases, you're going to have 4 people using the best healing weapon. It's kind of hard to find anything else. Let your dog in. I mean, they're in. They're going through my dog. They're freaking out. I don't know what's going on. What was the other thing I didn't like about this? There was something else that annoyed the hell out of me. I guess that's it, mainly.
Open world stuff. Guilds are going to be the lifeblood of this MMO. You're probably not going to see many small, cozy guilds. It's all about big, powerful groups duking it out over server dominance. This MMO is all about community and putting a massively multiplayer back into MMORPGs. You know, finally a game where you're not just a lone wolf. The MMO part actually means something in this game. In short, Throne of Liberty is an MMO that's really about being an MMO. It's bringing back the guilds, the social dynamics, and the open world chaos that made games like WoW great in the vanilla and TBC and Wrath days. Anyway, guys,
seems like this game could be good, but it's extremely dependent on being massively popularized. And I only just heard about this shit today, and it comes out in a week. So I don't know how I feel about that. After trying out Black Desert Online and running around alone for a couple hours in the big, vast, dead, lifeless open world, I hope this brings back the social aspect of MMORPGs. But like, oh, it's in 3 days? I never even heard of this. So how are you going to have this massive social MMO game? No one's heard of it. That vid is dog shit and outdated as... Dude, it's from 9 days ago. What do you mean? What? Okay, 10 days ago.
All right, so a lot of you guys have been asking me which early access pack you should buy. So I decided to record this video.
Nah, that's stupid. We need to talk about Throne and Liberty 1 month ago. Oh, Throne and Liberty, best highlights and funny moments, #1.
One of the best things about the first few days of an MMO are the bustling towns. The way Throne handles a large number of players in one spot is insane.
Leute hier gerade sind auf dem Server.
So this is the actual game. Let me see if I can put together what the fuck's happening. It's large-scale PvP. It seems like no melee can really go in or they die. which is one big downside of large-scale PvP. Range is king.
That was big.
Yep, that guy got caught, dead. And now they're all getting zoned out. They can't do anything. And they're killing
counter
robots.
push, guys. That was good. That was good.
This doesn't look terrible. It looks fun.
That was well done. Well done. Well done. Well done. Well done.
Hi, my name is Dom, and welcome back to Top MMO
How is this
Play.
large scale?
Don't forget to drop.
Thing is, that's not that large scale. That's maybe why I liked it a little bit more.
Today's
You know?
video and submit your clips using the link in the description.
Whoa, look at that mobility. Damn. Oh.
Right, so one of the best features in any modern game is proximity chat, a feature also available in Throne and Liberty.
I hear your mic, but it's super low. Wait, can you guys talk? Honed?
Wait, I can hear you right now.
Fucking God!
Yo, what's going on, man?
Bro!
Epic editing.
What the fuck is that?
Hey, man. Hi. Yo, can you hear me?
Wow, this thing is just fucking dog shit.
Oh my.
Ooh, I'm a bird.
Wow, Asmon played it.
I'm dead. Okay. Oh, oh, oh. Oh. Okay. I'm flying around.
These gloves are at 81%. Each roll is 50k and 9 growth stones.
Is that BDO? It'll be super pay to win. Yeah, I heard that too. I'm not sure like specifically how, but something like once you do all your dailies, at that point, the only way to really progress your character by yourself is to pay to win. But you can keep progressing your character by doing group content. I read that, but I don't know if that's actually how it is. Is that like Lost Ark? Okay, I don't need to hear you scream.
Mild pay to win, little bit of pay to win, almost nothing, very mild pay to win, and not grinding. That's why it underperformed in Korea. And many people don't know that. Many people think like, hey, wait, game have failed in Korea, it will fail globally. No, 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 no. It's completely different story. It was made for global market.
Seamless. No loading screen. Wow.
So with any new MMO, especially the free-to-play Korean ones,
were they
it's
sponsored to
important know
play?
if it's pay to win. Throne and Liberty has a pretty unique system where players actually benefit from whale spending.
Does anyone remember? I don't know.
Winning and giving your money.
See a lot of people saying no. I get somebody may actually remember.
Kind of like Lost Ark, but imagine if Lost Ark didn't have.
No, he's not sponsored.
Shop, it didn't have any of that, right? Just imagine if Lost Ark didn't have those features, and Lost Ark was only buying from players. It's kind of how this game works.
There's no way a fucking sponsor would want you to compare the game to another game.
So a player gets a really lucky craft. They get a sweet weapon with sweet traits. They can choose to equip it. Or be like, hey, I could make a lot of money here. I'm going to sell it. Because I got lucky. And someone else might want this more than I do. How's that pay to win? I think because you just could buy the best gear from people. That's all. I mean,
First impressions with the game so far that I just played it. I feel like the combat's really rough. It's not very good. The world building kind of sucks. The graphics are amazing. And I think the concepts in the game are kind of interesting, but overall, accept reject. Okay, Tilly, I guess I'll join your group. I guess I don't know what's going on.
The point about combat may have some merit. Of course, this is all early game content, and I personally haven't had much experience with the end game. This clip by Stoops highlights some of those combat complaints.
No, I can't really. It still hits me. It only like misses if I actually just completely keep moving. I mean, fuck it, guys. Fuck it, guys. Yo, guys, I'm out playing the fuck out of the game.
Yeah, I won't lie.
To be fair,
Like in
this
World
is far from exhilarating.
in World of Warcraft, I really do think like the red circles and blue circles and whatever bullshit on the floor that you're not supposed to like stand in are ugly as fuck. But I could see annoying things like this happening
Combat.
when you don't have that.
But I have
When you
my
try and
motion
make it
shot.
more immersive.
I walked into it. It's actually not going to go into its whirlpool effect because I'm not... It's just going to sit here and do this.
Throne and Liberty is a free-to-play game, but they are...
I might play it, but God, I'm just so
So
pessimistic.
Throne and Liberty is the
3 days ago. Okay, let's watch this and then I'm going to move on with my life.
next major MMO RPG set to release, and it's just around the corner. If you're an MMO Andy, let's be real here, you're probably going to try it, especially since it's free. In this
Fuck.
video, I'm going to be giving you guys an updated review of the game because the game has really transformed in the past 10 months that it's been out. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you do find the video helpful. I'm getting super close to my first major goal of 100,000 subs, and I would appreciate your guys' support on this. Also, I am streaming on Twitch almost every single day. I'm going to be going pretty hard into the launch, so come follow me on that platform, and let's begin the video.
Wow.
Regardless of what you've seen or heard from Throne so far, know this. This game has undergone insane amounts of change in the 10 months it's been out, and chances are, whatever it is that you heard or saw is likely outdated. Yes,
Okay.
even if you have personally played in the last beta test. As far as my experience goes, I've been playing and covering this game since before it even launched almost a year ago, and I've pretty much accomplished everything there is to accomplish in the game, including leading an alliance to win the first and biggest castle siege ever. I'm proudly sporting my prestigious First Legion title. With that out the way, let's dive into this so you know exactly what to expect.
He's
the
got
latest
credentials
version of Throne and Liberty. So what is Throne and Liberty? The TLDR, it's an open world fantasy medieval themed MMO that focuses around both PvP and PvE content with tab targeting combat at its core, but with optional action combat. Throne is a weapon-based class system where you can choose any 2 out of 7 weapons. NCSoft released Throne in December 2023, and since then, the game has undergone a multitude of changes and has transformed significantly since its start. For the better or worse, Throne had a pretty lackluster launch in Korea and never even maintained a top 10 ranking, despite it being NC's new flagship game. Before memeing on it though,
Oh, hey,
keep
Concord,
in mind
right
that
above it.
all KR rankings you see are based off of PC bang numbers, and considering, I shit you not, over half of the population were and almost still are foreigners, the ranking for Throne specifically is not really reflected accurately compared to all the other KR games in the ranking that consist of probably at least 99%.
What did
Korean
he
players.
just say? I'm so
Regardless,
confused.
it still wasn't super popular in Korea. That is a fact, and this was largely in part due to the strike people were on when it came to NCSoft games.
NCSoft is a horrible publisher. Don't support them. I don't know who NCSoft is. Mishandles, dispute it creates, disregarding disappointed players. Korean gamers take action against NCSoft's misleading marketing. Blade and Soul 2 hurts NCSoft shares. Jim, I didn't know there was a Blade and Soul 2. Reflecting deep disappointment of local users. Okay.
Because quite frankly, they were just sick of their bullshit. Period. Bad monetization and predatory tactics. A lot of Korean content creators just bashed NCSoft before and after the launch, saying, well, the same thing people in the West are saying. This forced NCSoft into a more apologetic, we need to win you back type of vibe, and it's been like this since the start of the game. 9 months later, they still maintain this position, and in my personal opinion, they've done a relatively good job not crossing that line they previously had in games, and most importantly, listening to feedback and making relatively quick adjustments based off of it. The narrative was, it's only a matter of time before NCSoft makes that move, but to give credit where credit is due, they haven't made that move yet. But we'll see. TLDR, NCSoft has been...
Well, that's... So wait, Koreans were upset that they the game was like very pay to win. Am I crazy? I thought they fucking loved that shit. Not pay to win enough. I mean, I don't know. The last guy I listened to is like they were upset it wasn't pay to win enough. I don't know why. They fucking love it. But it's complete opposite over here in the West. Can you imagine they love pay to win and are bashing it? So maybe it was that like too pay to win. I don't know.
And
Either
on
way,
their redemption
apparently it's
arc,
gone now.
probably because their stock price is at an all-time low. Switching gears now, originally Throne was essentially a PvP only game that really locked you into guild-oriented activities. While the premier content is still PvP, NCSoft has added a huge emphasis on PvE content and creating better experiences for players in smaller, non-hardcore guilds. We'll be talking about the endgame loop here in a bit, but you can expect a lot more time being spent on PvE, and
hold on,
added a huge emphasis.
Can you tell what's going on? I guess maybe you get comfortable. You can tell maybe it's like low quality because it's so much movement, but it's just a bunch of red health bars. I could not tell you what, and I feel like even if I played the game, I couldn't tell you what any of these classes are. I have no fucking idea.
On PvE content and creating better experiences for players in
Same with
smaller,
WoW?
non-hardcore
In WoW,
guilds.
I can actually
We'll
tell.
be talking about the endgame loop here in a bit, but you can expect
then again, that might be because I play
more
the game.
time being spent on PvE, and yes, you can be a PvE only Andy now. Zerging was also a huge issue as the original version did not really allow smaller or casual guilds to get things done. This also has changed, and now Zerging only takes place during PvP open world bosses, which there are non-PvP world boss options for, and Siege and Tax Golem for the most part, which takes place once every 2 weeks. Okay, let's talk about the combat. One of the biggest points of criticism with Throne revolved around its combat. First and foremost, Throne is a game where your combat experience will grow and evolve with your character build and power. The combat that you'll experience early on will continue to enhance to and through the end game. It will for sure be significantly slower early on compared to the end game. Recently, NCSoft has yet again revamped its combat system, now a second time. For those of you who have played in the most recent beta test, unfortunately, you did not have access to this updated combat. Skill specialization is a system recently added to the latest Telandria expansion that effectively works like tripods in Lost Ark, and it is available starting at around level 20. These skill specializations can completely transform your skill and have created a much more dynamic, faster-paced combat experience by offering more movement, utility, damage, and AoE across all weapons. In addition to this, NCSoft also added the option to remove camera smoothing and reduce the inertia while moving, providing a much more responsive, less clunky experience. Overall, though, there are still a few abilities that can feel a bit heavy and clunky, especially early on.
Oh god, look at this massive battle.
Targeting game, I feel like the combat is pretty solid. Personally, I think it's a lot of fun, especially when your build comes online. The bigger issue, in my opinion, is the targeting. While you do have a lot of options with target prio, I still feel like the targeting can feel a bit off sometimes. Definitely something NC needs to clean up on. It's often said that the combat gets better the longer you play. This is largely in part due to the itemization in Throne. This here is probably the biggest reason why Throne is honestly one of my favorite MMOs personally. In Throne, you have a lot of gear options. Your gear will determine you. How you play your class, how your class feels, what you're weak to, what you're strong to. No single class will be exactly the same, and you will always catch yourself asking, what is this dude's build when coming across a juiced character? In Throne, there is a massive emphasis on your gear, and there is no best in slot combination. It's very much a rock, paper, scissors, pick your poison type of system. Whether you're maximizing damage or defenses, you can't have it all, and your build will always excel and lack in some regard. For example, maybe you have juiced damage and you're strong against melee and ranged attacks, but it's at the cost of being slow and weak to magic. On the point of weaknesses, due to the nature of the pick your poison element in the build, you will never be a walking raid boss no matter how many dollars you put into the game. You'll always have a counter, and the dollar bill will not be able to shield you from everything. Yes, if you're a whale that has spent $50,000 into this game and this random free-to-play Andy comes and he just happens to be the build that counters you because you're weak to magic and he's staff, you will get shit on. Keck W. The downside to all this, though, is if you're someone that doesn't take interest in builds, you will have to do a little bit of due diligence to find a build from a reputable person, because it is extremely costly, especially if you're free to play, to mess up your build or choose the wrong one. In order to get a build to come online, you'll need to invest a significant amount of time and resources to do so.
Or money.
What do you do in Throne and Liberty? Content is king. Tell me about the content in Loop. Okay, so as mentioned before, Throne has really come a long way and has undergone a significant amount of changes since its launch. It's actually kind of funny to me watching other content creators trying to tell you about what you do in Throne or what kind of game Throne is. They're clearly just echoing what they've heard from an older version of Throne.
Content creators
clearly
not knowing what they're talking about.
themselves.
What?
Contrary to what they're saying, Throne is no longer a large-scale PvP only game. Let me break it down for you. When you reach the end game, you'll have a few main things you'll do on Loop, plus at least one major war pretty much every day. First, you have your contracts, which are your daily quests. You'll have 10 of these a day, taking you anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes. Then you have your instance dungeons that you'll do about 3 times a day, depending on the dungeons you're running. This will take you around 10 to 30 minutes, depending on your group and experience. However, it can also take hours if your group is less geared and less experienced. Completing contracts and dungeons will not only give you gear, upgrade mats, and experience, with dungeons giving you actual best-in-slot gear pieces as well, but it'll also give you open-world dungeon tokens known as Abyssal Contract tokens in-game. These open-world dungeon tokens are consumed when killing mobs in the open-world dungeons, which is the next endgame activity you'll do. Open-world dungeons are your BDO-esque content where you just go and farm mobs. Every time you kill a mob, you consume your tokens, and when you reach 0, you're pretty much done. So yes, TLDR, it's BDO grinding, but limited. I do want to add here that they have improved the open world dungeon grind significantly if you've done it before. You get a lot of loot when you go, and you have an option to grind both solo or in a party.
Okay, so to recap, you do your dailies, which are solo content, and then you do your 3 dungeons every day, which drops these other thingamajigs. So dailies, solo, group dungeons, and then open world dungeons. And then eventually after you run out of those tokens, you're done. Let's see what's next.
And tanks also don't get the shaft because loot is equalized for the most part, so DPS doesn't get significantly more, while healers get screwed over like they do in many games. The only difference between solo and party grind is that party grind will be significantly faster, and solo grinding will obviously require a lot more gear. Also, I should mention that PvP is enabled at night in-game, which lasts for about 20 minutes. When it comes to contracts, dungeons, and open world dungeons, all of these have caps or limits to how many you can do per day. How
PvP is turned on for 20 minutes a day? Oh, it's forced PvP. What do you mean by forced? In-game day. Okay, so the in-game night cycle. So a 20-minute window during the game day cycle. The day and night cycle isn't on the same time frame as real life. I get that, but what is forced PvP? So 20 minutes in-game, the time, right? I don't know how long that is going to be. Probably, let's say in-game, like 1 day is 3 hours, right? So 20 minutes of those 3 hours, sure. So you're just flagged for 20 minutes. All right.
However, you can stack these things and do them all at once without any diminishing returns. For example, you get 10 contracts per day, but can stack at least 60, so you can just knock out all 60 with no loss once every 6 days if you wish to do so. This stacking system prevents FOMO and allows players to just chill, take a break, or just do other things. These 3 things are your main quote-unquote homework content when it comes to shit you need to get done to progress your character.
Got it.
In addition
Okay.
to this, you have
Simple.
one form of uncapped content, which are called challenge dungeons. These challenge dungeons
Mythic
are the
Plus.
Mythic Plus dungeons of Throne and Liberty. They are the same endgame dungeons, only they have tiers and increase in difficulty the higher you go. Modifiers are added and increased while boss patterns change. These challenge dungeons provide runes upon completion, runes being another form of vertical power that you can equip onto your weapons. On a final note, there are also leaderboards and rankings for these challenge dungeons, giving endgame incentive to PvE Andes. To summarize, you pretty much have contracts and dungeons, which will give you open world dungeon tokens. Then you burn those tokens in the open world dungeon. Then when you finish that, you have the challenge dungeons that you can do with no limit. This is your main endgame loop.
But you don't
It's
gain
a
anything out of
PvE
these.
loop.
It's just the
Now, some of
leaderboard.
you may be wondering, I heard there were events every hour. What about those? These events consist of Dominion Wars, which are randomized faction v faction v faction wars with an objective, PvE objective-based events, and world bosses.
Yes, you do. You get runes. That progresses your character to like do really okay. All right.
Dominion Wars and PvE events don't really have that much that they provide anymore and are relatively lackluster unless
Oh, update. They have buffed rewards and they're worth doing now. So everything he's saying is
Ubisoft
wrong here.
plans to have them provide mats linked to the new artifact system that will be coming out later. I'm hoping they are because the Dominion Wars itself are quite fun considering it's a PvP mode where you get randomly placed on one of 3 colored factions and you just kill each other with an objective. World bosses have PvP and non-PvP versions. You get multiple bosses that spawn at once, and usually the PvP versions will garner big wars between the top guilds and alliances competing on the server since these bosses drop important gear. So where does the PvP come in outside of the world bosses? What about the daily major
He's
war
always
content?
low health.
Well,
Oh, there he
you
goes.
have arc bosses, which are juiced world bosses that spawn once a week. These guys drop the absolute strongest weapons that are extremely expensive and very prestigious. Korea is about to get their 3rd arc boss, but on global, you'll have 2 in the beginning, both on separate days. These world bosses do have a PvE and PvP version of them. PvE meaning peace, no PvP allowed. Then you have your GVG stuff. Without going too much into detail here, there is a variety of different types of GVG content. For example, Riftstones and Boonstones are a 1v1 GVG where you fight for a
that's big
territory
AoE.
that allows your guild exclusive access to that respective world boss and or bonus sheet stats every day. You also have cross-server GVG content, otherwise known as inter-server events. Each one of these things take place 1 to 2 times a week, spreading out the content so that pretty much every day there's one major PvP event. Not only are these events the main premier content of Throne and Liberty, but they also give you significant rewards. I mean, exclusive boss farming goes without saying, but you can also get a hefty amount of Solent and Lucent, the currencies of Throne and Liberty. These events do have a cap on how many players can attend, preventing zergs and allowing for fair GVG fights. Aside from all of this, we of course have the pinnacle content of Throne, which is the Castle Siege. Pretty
Okay.
straightforward here. The occupying alliance will try and defend their castle against everyone else. Whoever wins the castle siege will be rewarded a significant amount of Solent and Lucent. This content is completely open world and any guild is allowed to participate. There's more to the siege than the attempt to take the throne, however. You also have pillage points scattered throughout the castle. These pillage points allow any guild occupying them to steal from the total Solent and Lucent purse. These points allow smaller guilds and alliances to also have purpose in the siege, even if they can't compete for the throne. Once the siege is over, the final bit of content is Golem, which also rewards players Solent and Lucent. This content will have the occupying guild attempt to transport a golem to their castle, while other guilds attempt to stop them and steal. These events take place once every other week. Finally, the last thing on the list is
Cooking.
life skilling. These are new systems that have been recently implemented, mainly coming in the form of fishing and cooking. The system itself is pretty bare bones and straightforward, but it has been continuing to improve. Cooking dishes provide some really important buffs you want to run, and you have the option to buy, sell, and craft these recipes for yourself. Fishing is also a pretty nice laid-back feature, allowing you to fish out some pretty nice rewards, including mats for cooking. Both these life skills do have gear and vertical progression to them.
This looks infuriating.
They are 100% side content for now. First, I want to start this section by saying that I do plan on making a more in-depth breakdown of the pay to win in a separate video so you can fully understand how it works. But to keep this video from being 17,000 hours long, I'm going to keep this relatively short, or try to, in general. Is it pay to win? The answer is yes. It's for sure pay to win. How is it pay to win? Well, you can purchase the tradable currency. In MMO terms, you can buy and spend gold to buy gear and upgrade your shit. It's about as systematically pay to win as it can be. If you're tolerant to a certain level of pay to win, then you're probably asking, how pay to win is it? In my personal opinion, I'd say it's a bit less pay to win than BDO and Lost Ark, but it's pretty close. It's hard to compare because in some ways it's more and in some ways it's less. NCSoft has a strong reputation of adding egregious pay to win later into their games to the point where they just die. But 10 months into Throne, they have actually reduced and alleviated the pay to win systems for the most part. Here's a bulleted breakdown of the pay to win. You can realistically compete as a free-to-play player and be very close in overall power. You can realistically reach max gear score as a free-to-play player. You can shit on whales as a free-to-play player. Remember, as mentioned before, every class has a counter, pick your poison, rock, paper, scissors system. Whales cannot be min-max gear / power day one. They are gated on their upgrades, keeping the gap in power, especially early on, manageable. When upgrading, you need multiple mats, but each upgrade will require a mat that is not swipeable. You can get the most powerful Arc Boss weapons as a free-to-play player. You just need to join the right guild. We, the players, control how we get these weapons, considering all Arc Boss weapons go to the player guilds first. You can whale for the most powerful Arc Boss weapons as well, but it will be a while before you can do so because they are rarely sold early on and you're waiting for guilds to sell them. Most guilds will keep them within their guild because your guild is significantly stronger the more you have, allowing you to effectively farm more, which is why most people actually say Arc Boss weapons are more guild to win than pay to win. The cost to swipe for capped gear is cheap compared to other Korean pay-to-win games. By capped, I mean max gear. Like, you can't get any more power. Pre-Talandry, it costs around $500.
The pay-to-win discussion for MMOs is always tough, because it's like, usually, in pay-to-win MMOs, your best guilds are all just free-to-play players, right? They're just neats. Oh, my mom's here. Hang on. Okay. I'm just talking to my mom. What was I saying? Oh yeah, the discussion between like pay to win games. It's difficult because like you don't ever get to have a fully honest convo, because I feel like a lot of really angry people like to use this as like their avenue of therapy because they're broke. And they just completely, you don't get an actual honest convo about how pay to win is it actually. There's pay to win equals bad. End of discussion. No more. That's it. I like actually getting some bit of to the blunt honesty.
USD in Korea to min-max if you're going to just swipe for all of it, not including Arc Boss.
This is probably going to be a little too pay to win.
Go for anywhere
Lost Ark was
from
way too pay to win.
$350 to $1,200 USD in Korea. There is a big fluctuation because there aren't that many that get listed overall. If it's consistent with Korea, it should cost you anywhere roughly from 1k USD to 4k USD to get a fully maxed out full power character with double Arc Boss weapons on global, assuming you're doing the very bare minimum and you're pretty much buying everything. To add some perspective here, this is the equivalent of max quality gear, S-8 weapon, 1010 stone, and Lost Ark. You can't go any more vertical. And that about wraps up this game review. I really wanted to get an updated review on this game for you guys because the game...
So I feel like a lot of people are going to take that. Like, you can't get a fully maxed character unless you put in 1 to 4K. Like, that's how a lot of people, I feel like, would read that. It's like, that's if you really just paid the whole but just play the game, you can do it. It's not hard. But it's a frustrating conversation.
Very bare minimum, and you're pretty much buying everything. To add some perspective here, this is the equivalent of max quality gear, S-8 weapon, 1010 stone, and Lost Ark. You can't go any more vertical. And that about wraps up.
Okay. I do know in BDO there was like some guy who was spending, I don't know how much he spent, but he was a very known whale. And he actually spent like $1 million or something on his character. And he was straight up unkillable. That's insane that you can even do that. He actually was unkillable. He was a raid boss, but it was $1 million. The fact that that's even possible is absurd. So there's different variations of pay to win. I think a lot of people don't take into consideration. Also, the best players in BDO, pretty much all of them besides the one guy who put in $1 million, were all, for the most part, free to play. They're just neats that just played a lot. Like, those are your best players. So if your top players besides the 1 millionaire are free to play, it's like, I feel like the people who have the money have a job and they have to keep their job, so they don't get to, it's a weird area.